Good vibes. Spread those vibes.
Why about now?
You
Why about now?
What song is that?
I just made that up. That's called
I
singer-songwriter.
love that.
That could be our theme music. Why about now? Why about now? Hey everyone, my name is Nick.
Hey everybody, I'm Richard, and welcome to Routine Progress,
A podcast where we talk about all the difficult yet hopefully desirable things that you want to hear about.
Yes, but we want to make it clear, we are not here to tell you how to feel about those things.
No, because we're not experts yet.
Yet. We are not experts yet. We are actually just here to, start with bettering ourselves and the world around us.
And inspire a deeper understanding.
And also reason-based logic.
And honestly, just good vibes all around.
That's it. Just good vibes everywhere for everyone.
Vibes. You get a vibe and you get a vibe.
You get a vibe. You get a vibe.
Word.
All
right. FYI, this podcast was recorded on October 16th, last Friday, right after the town hall debate. So all the information and opinions that we have are based on the news at that time. Since we know nowadays news is changing moment by moment, the whirlwind of news.
Changing every second. So
just
hold us accountable for that time frame only. Also, this podcast was recorded in front of a live studio audience.
No, that's not morally correct.
A live socially distanced studio audience. No, I'm kidding.
A live audience of 2.
Yeah, that's it.
So what are we talking about today?
Okay, so I think today we have to get real about this whole debate thing that's been happening. Well, the presidential election you first saw, but specifically the debates. We have to get real about that.
The town halls that happened last night, right?
Yeah, and just all of that, because
I'm excited about this because I feel like you are actually very well informed about these town halls, and I just caught the highlights, so I'm excited to get the real tea from you.
Oh, I have it. Piping hot.
Piping hot.
And then after, so I think we talked about this. We're going to review the series Woke on Hulu.
Yes, we're going to take that in.
You turned me on to this, but I'm very excited because I watched an episode and I have a lot of things that so a little quick review of that.
Good.
And then afterwards, we're just going to go back and forth and give a quick blurb about whatever we're on one about tonight. Like, I know I'm usually on one about many things, but I picked one thing today to just go off and we'll kind of each share what we're on one about.
I'm definitely on one about something very specific this week, so I'm excited about that.
Also, you don't know, but I told you what I was going to do the other day, and I actually changed my mind because I got on one about something. Yeah. So yeah, excited for that. Cool. So let's just get into it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we have a presidential election going on right now. I don't know if you know.
Yeah.
It's kind of like underground, it's like an underground little chat.
You only know about it if somebody tells you about it. It's like a little speakeasy of an election we got going right now.
Invite only underground rap battle.
It is actually not that. It has become the biggest and most interesting television show to watch in the history of television so far. And last night I felt like was the reunion episode where they refused to be in a separate room, so they filmed from different sets.
Oh my God, that's too real. That's very much
what it was giving for me. Like I said, you were able to actually sit down and watch. First of all, how did you watch it? Did you flip in between?
So I have to tell you this. So I turned on the YouTube channel of ABC, which is where Joe Biden was. And then I was like, but I also want to see the Trump one because that's probably, I mean, this is why I hate Trump because he's so good for ratings because I just want to know what he's going to say, but I also hate him. So anyways, but I was like, I also want to see what Trump is going to say. So I turned on I opened a new tab of what was on NBC, the NBC YouTube. So I literally had both on and I ended up just like, sometimes there was really a point where I had both microphones on, both sound on. And I was trying to like listen to both at the same time.
So moral of the story is you like torturing yourself.
But I'm very much a masochist in that way, yeah. And you know, to be honest, I ended up listening to more of the Trump one because, again, like he's more insane. So for me, it's like. Well, also, I agree with Biden pretty much on everything. And I already know I'm voting for Biden. So it's kind of like I want it. And I'm always trying to like sharpen my arguments against like the Trump voters because I think that's a horrible game, but fun game to try and figure out is how to kind of break through the cult, you know, to tell them their leader is a monster. So yeah, so I listened to both moral of the story. So I have a lot of ideas.
Well, it's not a surprise to me that you listen more to the Trump one either, because like I said, one of my favorite things about you is the fact that even when you do support something, you definitely leave room for criticism of that thing, and you actively listen to the other side, even if it is the most bizarre shit that you're ever gonna hear in your life.
Yeah, well, listen, I mean, that's like my MO in the world is like seeing everything from all sides. And if I'm already biased towards one side, like I have to be hyper aware of the other side to make sure that I'm not, especially nowadays when we're all in our own individual social media bubbles of information that we have to, I mean, I think it's like civically responsible to do that. So, yeah. So anyways, so the reason we had these town halls was that Donald Trump got COVID-19 because he's an irresponsible person and refused to have an online debate with Joe Biden because the bipartisan debate committee asked it to be online for safety reasons. So there we are. Here we are. We're yesterday with these two dueling town hall and they called it on TV dueling town halls.
I mean, it's like the high school. Like, which party are you going to? Because I heard Brad is also having his party tonight.
No, and like even a bunch of stars and like big news hosts of NBC spoke out yesterday and were yelling at NBC because they hosted at the same time. And they were like, Rachel Maddow was like the most prestigious one. I think Mandy Moore from This Is Us, which airs on NBC, also spoke out, among others. And they basically said, this is not responsible to host it like a ratings challenge, you know, because the point of these debates, the point of all of this is to be able to hear these two sides.
It's to get America to hear both sides. Absolutely.
Well, to hear both sides and also like hear the arguments challenging against each other. And obviously because we didn't have a one-on-one debate, you wouldn't get that in its entirety, but at least whether it's an hour apart or something, be able to, so like, if people want to, they could tune into both, so you don't have to do what I did and try to break your eardrums trying to listen to both at the same time.
Yeah, well, that is a very specific strategy, I'll have you know. Most people probably just try to bounce back and forth as much as they could. And I must say, like, I'm not necessarily even mad that it happened this way just because of how the first in-person debate went, right? It was a shit show. So like I can only, and I think I mentioned this on one of my social media platforms like about a week ago. Like I could only imagine what a Zoom debate would be like with these two candidates, primarily because of Trump. It's like, would there be microphone muting allowed? And like, if so, then I guess Trump was smart not to do it through Zoom or whatever platform they were going to use because he could then be muted. But from my perspective, just at the top of it, he had another opportunity to come onto mainstream television and just be completely defensive and sort of erratic about the stature of his presidency.
Well, first of all, he explicitly said the reason he didn't want to do an online debate was because they can mute you. Because the only way that he can defend himself is by over speaking, talking over other people, because if he's going in a genuine back and forth debate, there's the conversation, he doesn't win because he doesn't speak with actual reason arguments. Like he doesn't actually give you facts. He just changes the subject and then bullies you into not being able to have a real conversation.
Right. So my perception of that was spot on. And mind you, I did not hear that because again, I only watched the highlights of the foolishness. I didn't catch the full live running train. So yeah. So what were your thoughts on that?
Okay, so I have to give props to Samantha Guthrie, I think her name is, who is the NBC interviewer of Trump. Like,
I loved her energy.
I never knew of her before. I don't have a TV, like I don't have cable at my house. I just watch things online, like, you know, whatever. And we have an Apple TV, but so I don't watch NBC, I don't watch ABC, I don't watch any of those general TV shows, especially news. I think cable news is problematic in general. But I'd never seen her interview anyone, and she was like, "Ooh, girl!" Like she was on it. Like she was talking.
She had the right energy.
Yeah, she was talking just as fast as him. She was like picking up on all those follow-up questions when he would dodge, and she was like, "What did she say about QAnon?" When she was asking about QAnon, which, ooh, okay.
Wait, yes. So like, hold on. His refusal to acknowledge QAnon, but also acknowledge the best parts of it that he knows about, but he doesn't know about. Man, I could not take those two dueling realities that he kept spitting out back to back. I'm like, oh, this is the most frustrating thing I've ever seen.
It's like it's so frustrating and
crazy.
You know, it's like that's the point. Him and his supporters get off on making people like us frustrated because it's nonsensical and they think it's all part of the master plan, and like, but it's honestly just him.
Yo, what was that quote that she said? She's like, "You're the president. You're not someone's crazy uncle."
Somebody's crazy uncle in a basement.
I'm just trying to get it out there, and she's like, "No."
No, he goes, "I just need to get my word out there," and she goes, "The word is wrong."
Yeah, it's wrong. It's straight up wrong. Yo. So like
clap. Seriously, Samantha Guthrie, VIP of the town halls.
You did that.
So yeah, bless her. One thing that really creeped me out was all of the people who asked, this is a side note, but all the people who asked Trump questions that were fans of him were literally treating him like a cult leader. Like, did you watch that one question from that woman with the glasses? And I think she said she was a Republican, but voted for Hillary. But she is leaning towards the president. And she before she started, she goes, "Mr. President, I just want to say you have the most beautiful smile. You're so handsome when you smile."
What?
And he got so obviously excited to hear that. But I was like, what is happening? What is that? There's, it's just like, first of all, inappropriate. Yes, second of all, inappropriate. It's so close to that kind of Kim Jong-un, our dear leader kind of cult. And it's very that kind of obsession. They're look at him as if he is a higher than God being.
So was it a situation where they had those people pre-vetted to make sure they were in support of him, no matter what questions they were asking? Because I will say, I did catch that clip of the Biden town hall where the young black man was basically asking him, besides saying that if you don't vote for me, you're not black, what do you have to say to black people right now during this election? And though his answer for me was still a bit vague, you know what I mean? He spoke specifically about the black vote, but not technically what his messaging was for black people besides your vote is important. It's like, we know that. That's why we're here right now. That's why we're asking this question. But I mean, I said that to say it didn't seem like his questions were necessarily too heavily pre-vetted or set up in his favor.
Well, all of the questions are vetted. That's guaranteed. They would never put someone on if they didn't know the question. Because, for example, at one of the town halls, there's a guy who was stuck in traffic. And so, but they still read his question, and they showed a picture of him. So they had all the questions pre-vetted beforehand, and in both the town halls they gave a variation of people. So some of them, and they announced it before. They were like, oh, this person is, you know, a registered Republican, leaning towards or independent or undecided, and then they had their questions. So each one of them had a varied amount of people asking questions.
That's good to hear.
But I think, like, you know, it's funny. I listened to the Biden question you were asked, the black guy who asked about you know, what are you going to say? And he was, you know, his answer was long and varied and very kind of Joe Biden-y, where he tells a story about his life compared to, you know, and tries to connect it to real world stuff. And, you know, he talked about, you know, systemic, you know, equity, which I appreciated. He talked about, you know, being able to buy making sure that it's equal opportunity to buy housing and get equity and build wealth over time, getting rid of, you know, redlining, all those things. So he was hitting the right bullet points. I mean, and then you go to Trump, and there was a question from someone that said, it was from a woman, and I think she was leaning Trump, and she was like, I have a black son, and I'm worried, you know, what do you have to say about training our police officers or something like that? And this is the thing about him is I don't even remember exactly what he said, but it was something along the lines of like, you know, yeah, that's bad. And we're doing great with black people. We're doing the best. We're really excited. We're going to win all our numbers. I've done the best with the black people. And he goes off into like the general talking points, and there's no real policy. There's no real answer. It's just so infuriating to me.
Oh, it's hella infuriating. And I saw that question as well. And he always goes for that line where he's like, I've done more for the African American community than any other president since Abraham Lincoln. And it's like, I always wonder why people never give that a follow-up question. People just let that shit rock every time they let it rock. And like, there's no follow-up question. And like you said, man, there's no real strategy that he talks about. There's no real facts that he can bring up. It's just him like boosting himself up as he normally does. And that shit gets real old, like really, really quick.
It's bizarre to me how no one catches, or how so many people don't catch. Obviously, many people do, but I think it's bizarre to me how his people who support him don't catch that, or don't feel the need to care about him actually putting out clear, coherent ideas. You know, it's like, yeah, you can refer to these talking points that aren't, you know, whatever. He did actually give money to HBIC, or what is it?
HBCUs,
historically black. Yeah, HBC.
You were about to say HBIC, which means that bitch in charge. He's giving money to all the HBICs all around the globe. Love that. Love that contribution from him.
Oh God, that's so funny.
That's hilarious. Cheers to that.
Cheers to the HBICs.
Yeah, yo, but look,
and this, I was gonna, sorry, one more thing, just before and he did the same thing with his healthcare question. The woman was like, what are you gonna do in your next term to help pre-existing conditions? And he just literally, she said, what's your plan for healthcare? I think specifically she said, what's your plan for healthcare? And he goes, well, we did the biggest thing. We took away the individual mandate, which was pretty much the whole part of the issue, part of the plan. And then, we're going to get, you know, Obamacare is the worst. Obamacare is the worst, like on repeat. And then just saying, and then you know what? We're going to keep pre-existing conditions. We're going to keep pre-existing conditions. And you know what? We're going to do something better. We're going to make sure everyone's going to cover like all those same things. And then Samantha Guthrie follows up and says, but actually your administration has a lawsuit in the government right now that is going to rip away pre-existing conditions. And he goes, I don't even know what he said. He says, don't worry. And all he says is, don't worry, we're going to keep them. Like,
yeah, and then moreover, she pressed him even harder about his, like, he just keeps screaming about repealing and replacing. And although he has repealed so much of Obamacare, he hasn't really replaced much of it, and he refused.
He hasn't replaced any of it.
He hasn't replaced any of it, and then he doesn't acknowledge that he hasn't even done the second part. She's like, "Hey, you've had 4 years already to replace part of it, and you haven't done any of it." So he doesn't answer to it. It's very bizarre to watch. It's very bizarre to watch. It's just as equally bizarre to watch, and sorry to like switch crazy talking points on him, but like it was equally bizarre to watch him admit that he's like $400 million in debt to some mystery entity out there, right? We have moved far beyond from him denying that this thing even exists and him being like, oh, it's just $400 million.
Yeah, no big. He's like, it's nothing. It's nothing.
It's small. And like according, like as in opposition to like what I'm worth, it's chump change. Like, what?
Yeah, literally what? Literally
like,
what?
The craziest thing to see him kind of casually speak about that sort of debt, and like you're the leader of this nation, and like transparency should be key. Like we people should know who you're in debt to. If it's not Russia, like who is it? And then you talk about how he like is in debt as a favor. Like, you know, anything that happens to him that has to deal with a dose of reality, like him contracting coronavirus, which he said was like a blessing from God, and this $400 million debt that he talks about, he's like, oh, I was doing people a favor by accepting these loans. So you were doing people a favor by allowing yourself to go hundreds of millions of dollars into debt as a favor. I don't buy that. I don't buy that.
It's it's like on this side of the table, it's insane. On their side of the table, it's a great excuse, like, or it doesn't even matter.
Yeah.
Which is why it's so fraught, because it's like we could screech about this all fucking day, but to those people who, you know, believe that he's saving the country from socialism, it's like, what are you gonna do? How you gonna get them to change their mind?
How you gonna get these folks to
wake up?
Do that?
To wake up, to read the news, to read objective facts.
What was it about Joe Biden's, or as Maya Rudolph would say when she's playing Kamala, Joe Biden? What is it about Joe Biden's town hall that stuck out to you? Good or bad, I guess. Good or bad?
I think, you know, I did find myself switching off of him more often than not, because he would kind of draw on a little bit, like he would talk and tell a story, and it kind of did feel like, okay, are we getting to the point here? And he would make good points in there, but it wasn't as concise as I wanted it to be. I mean, he said all the right things. I mean, in my opinion, I think, you know, he addressed all of the systemic racist kind of policy stuff he was saying. He was I mean, you know, obviously they talked a lot about coronavirus, and everything he said was just very logical. We're listening to the scientists. We're going to do our best to, you know, encourage everyone to wear a mask, and do our best to encourage everyone to get a vaccine when it comes out. All the things that a normal president would say. So it's, and I think I read something in the New York Times that was just like, if Trump was not in the picture, like Joe Biden just presented a very traditional presidential campaign. And that's his message for the country, is that I'm bringing things back to a sense of normalcy in process. You know, he's obviously the most liberal candidate we've ever had on the Democratic side, which is insane to me that, you know, he is considered a moderate, but he's still presenting the most liberal candidacy that ever, more so than Barack Obama did. And he's very much one of those candidates who does change with the times. So it's like they brought up his, you know, crime bill, you know, that basically targeted Black people, you know, after the effect. And he apologized for parts of it that, you know, did come out that wrong, that did, you know, mistreat, you know, communities of color. But he did say kind of like, listen, man, it was the times of the times. And I made deals and I did my best, and I'm growing and learning with the times. So I don't, whatever.
The ability to just look at the American people and say that, I think, is vital to a presidency. And Donald Trump is not a man who admits his flaws or wrongdoings or mishaps. And he, like we keep talking about, is someone who has just gone, seems like he's sinking deeper into like willfully throwing out all of these like conspiracy theories into the world, even the one about SEAL Team 6 and Osama bin Laden, and just like how casual he is about those things. There's no responsibility or accountability in any of his actions or after. And it's just, I know personally, man, I cannot deal with that shit for 4 more years.
Yeah. I think the biggest argument I have against Trump is just, no matter what policies a president says, and we've gone back and forth throughout our country about policy and, Republican, Democrat, conservative, liberal, kind of, that's not new. We've always disagreed on how to run the country to a certain degree, but no matter who's in power, they have an effect on the country, what they say, how they act, how they treat the world around them. That, in my opinion, the biggest, because again, if you don't agree with liberal policies, you're kind of like, should I sell my soul to Trump kind of situation? Because he is, for all intents and purposes, doing a lot of the things Republicans want him to do. But in terms of just his demeanor and how he treats people and how he encourages chaos and encourages divisiveness and encourages just non-facts, non-reason-based conversation, all of that, tweets out emboldens conspiracy theories and violence. It's just, that to me is just because even if you agree with Trump's policies, he's not the one to get America better. He's destroying us slowly, only for his own purposes.
For sure.
So that's my thoughts on that. Do you have any final thoughts on what you feel about this situation?
Just the biggest message overall, which should be, and I know you feel similar to this, so I could speak for both of us when I say, like, again, we're not here to tell you who to vote for. We're just here to tell you to exercise your right to vote. It's really important, man. I know it sounds cheesy and corny, but just like, use your voice. We're in the times right now where like our voices and who we are and what we believe in and how we carry that is the most important thing. So to not be a part of that is willful ignorance, and I don't know how much willful ignorance serves anyone. So vote, people.
I was really high last night. And I was daydreaming or something. I think I was doing yoga and like I was in like just hanging out and thinking. And I was pretending I was like a politician or something. And I was like, voting is your duty. It's not a right, it's a duty. This is what democracy is. And if everyone truly like paid as much attention to all their local elections, and then further up, think of all the change we could actually enact by making people really accountable and really paying attention to all the stuff that's actually happening, Well,
it's true. And just basically, at the smallest scale of things, being able to sit down and research each thing that you're actually voting on and not feeling the pressure of time or a line behind you or whatever else you have to do, just being able to have the space to sit and research each person, each topic, each issue that you're voting on, I think is so crucial. And I think that that's one of the greatest things about the way we're having to vote right now. I'm a person who has a great grandfather who literally died for our voting rights. That's a longer story, but it's an issue that's really important to me. So now I'm at the point where I'm like, hey, if I have to stand in line at a DMV all day to get a Pennsylvania ID just so I can vote in Pennsylvania because my mail-in ballot has not shown up, I'm going to do so because, again, the right to exercise your voice is the most important freedom that we all have. And we'll see what we're talking about come November.
Okay, let's drop that for a minute.
Yeah, shake that off. And anyone else who had to take in any of this town hall bullshit, make sure you do something for yourself to shake that off because it's weird, man. It's weird.
That's the goal, is like, pay attention, stay informed, but also like don't
I have this, maybe do some of this, do whatever you need to do, burn whatever you need to burn.
Yeah,
like marijuana.
I was in my meditation this morning and I had that vision of like those shirts of like the Buddha, and it's like, let that shit go, It's just like, it's so true. Just let it go. Like, it is our lives, but you don't have to live your life always in it.
Nah. You have your choice of like what you're consuming and when you consume it.
Exactly, and how you hold on to that 24/7 or not. You know?
Yo, so we're shaking that off, and I think this
Yeah.
is a good time to jump right into this week's topic of our cultural review. And
Mhm.
this week we're going to talk about Hulu's new show, Woke, right?
Woke. I think
Woke.
very fitting for this podcast, you know, because it's like I think we're woke.
I don't think that you will ever be able to live that comment down, is what I think.
It's too early here. I'm still in dreamland.
Yeah, no. I totally understand.
I say that humbly though. I truly do. Because
Yeah,
I
yeah,
do
yeah.
kind of think the word is like ironic now. I use it ironically.
We're very woke, and we're also incredibly humble about it.
I mean, yeah, I'm definitely I'm really amazingly informed and above my times, but I'm super
Yeah,
humble.
yeah, right. So Woke is a show that is on Hulu right now. I believe it was created by Keith Knight and
Mm-hmm.
Marshall Todd, and it's starring Lamorne Morris. Most people remember Lamorne from New Girl. That's what I remember him from the
Mm-hmm.
most.
That's his biggest thing.
Yeah, he's like the other black guy on New Girl who's not like a Wayne's Brothers kid. He's not Damon Wayans Jr. The Woke is his new show that he's starring in on Hulu, and it's about him portraying this character who is what was the label? Remember how I said cartoon artist is not the word?
Uh,
He is a cartoonist.
Cartoonist. Yeah, it's a
Cartoonist.
combination of the two. He's a
Yeah,
cartoon
so
artist, but a cartoonist.
like I don't want to be attacked by the cartoonist community for diminishing like their title. So like he's a
Cartoon
cartoonist.
artist. It's a cartoonist. That's how they speak in
And
my mind.
yeah, so he writes this weekly comic book strip. I think it's called like Toast and
Bread
Butter.
and
Is that what it's
butter.
called?
Oh yeah,
What is it?
toast and butter. Yeah,
Yeah,
toast and
Toast and
butter.
Butter.
Yeah.
And initially, it's just this really like lighthearted comic strip with like funny little situations that happen. And then Lamorne has his first woke experience. He is just casually, I believe, walking through like a market or a pumpkin patch or some shit.
Yeah,
Um,
it takes place in San Francisco, so they're at like a farmer's market.
Yeah, that's what it is. A farmer's market in San Francisco. And he's just walking around being his black self. And then he's attacked by the police, like thrown to the ground and just kind of profiled in a case of mistaken identity. And I guess for this character specifically, it was his first woke experience. Before then, being woke or being aware of his racial identity, I guess is not something he had to encounter before this moment. And so the show kind of trails his experience thereafter. One of the biggest plot lines being that he can no longer casually write toast and butter from such a free form place that he used to before. And it has quickly become very politically driven, which his audience is not okay with because they're like, you're toast and butter guy. You're not like Malcolm X guy. So that's the basic plot of the show. And it just goes through his journey of now being woke after his first experience.
So I thought it was really smart of them to use a cartoonist as the main protagonist because you know after he had the racial profiling moment, when he starts to see racism everywhere, whether it's racism or whether it's cultural appropriation or whether it's whatever he's seeing, you know, that's dealing with the effects of that racial profiling on him, it comes out in cartoons, right? So like the garbage can talk to him when he walks into the barber's office. That was a black barber shop. And he you know, and tells him, you know, how to feel about the whiteness of the black barbershop.
Yeah, we should also comment on the 40 ounces that talk to him when he's in the store. And I'm like,
Exactly.
oh, you woke now, huh?
Yeah. So I think it was a really smart technique to use to kind of use cartoon elements to kind of not only reflect his inner psyche, but then deliver the message in a way that isn't too abrasive. You know,
It's a really interesting topic too because I think that a lot of black artists certainly deal with this experience to a certain degree. I remember sort of when the world first realized that Beyonce was really black after the Super Bowl, you know, and they were like, Beyonce has black thoughts, and like it's just a
Right.
certain,
It's not just for white people.
yeah,
Like,
you know, a certain type
it
of
was
people.
created for us.
Yeah, certain, exactly. Once white people realized they didn't own Beyonce, like things kind of
Yeah.
flipped on their ass for her. But one thing that I really appreciate about her, you know, is that a lot of her content thereafter has still been very, very, very pro-black, which I really respect her for, like, not letting up, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
I also I thought it was really well done how, you know, they like, you know, in the beginning of the episode, you know, he gets all these moments of you know, that what's her name from SNL, who comes up to him in the shop.
Oh, Shashir Zamata. Shashir
Yeah.
Zamata. Yeah.
So she comes up to him and she's like, "Oh my God, I love your cartoon. Like, you're so, what did she say? You're so pro-black, or so like,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
deal with cultural." And he's kind of like, "What? Like, I'm not purposely doing anything."
That's
Like,
not what I was doing.
he
Yeah.
doesn't identify like with that. Well, how do I say this? He doesn't like.
Well, he just doesn't necessarily. He wasn't creating from that point of struggle, almost like, you know what I mean. He wasn't trying to rally in a certain group of people with what he was creating. It was very unintentional.
Well, it's that, and like even on the bus when the guy is like, "Oh yeah, like he sees him drawing toast and butter, and he's like, "Oh, I do too," and he's like, "Oh, I make it," and he's like, "Oh, I didn't expect you to be," and he's gonna say black, and then he says
Yeah.
tall, but like the main character brushes it off because he doesn't feel any type of way about it beforehand, right? He doesn't feel that kind of quote unquote wokeness, they call it later,
Yeah.
until he has the moment of racial profiling, which I find also really, really interesting and really like smart to kind of comment on, of like, you know, unless you have the life experience of such that makes you feel a certain type of way, you don't see the world in that light until then. And, you know, even him being a black man, he didn't have those type of experiences. Maybe he, you know, again, it's a fictional show, but like it appears that he didn't have the type of life where he was approached with those kind of serious you know, racial dynamics enough until this moment, where he didn't see the world in that way until this moment.
Yes. There's a lot of different, like, crucial points like that this show hints or hits on, and I think another one of those is the portrayal of his best friend, who's played by is it Blake? What's that guy's name? Blake Anderson. He's from Workaholics, and he is one of his closest friends and roommate who is white. And when he's having that first woke experience, you see him come over and like sort of be very aggressive with the cops. He's like pointing at them and poking them.
Yeah, that was well done.
Yeah, it was well done to just see the duality of that, and how his friend is the same guy also felt so affected by this experience. And it's like, I think you were affected in two different ways here.
Yeah,
but
what he says, like,
very interesting to see that portrayal.
Yeah, he's like that guy. He goes up to me after he got a profile. He goes, "I can't believe they got us like that." And like, bitch, I was on the ground.
Like, bitch, I thought I was about to die. And he's like, "I can't believe they got us like that."
Yeah.
That shit was golden.
It's also really smart as well, because like even after he has the woke experience, he gets mugged by another black guy, and it's kind of like that, like, you know, it's like it's not like he is falling into this kind of like, oh, it's black versus white. It's like, oh, it's just kind of like a new awareness of pockets of the world.
Well, what I think it is it sorry, not to cut you off, but I think just that it perfectly demonstrates and again lightly hints at the fact that, like, you know, as a black man, we do fight a couple of different struggles, and like, yes, part of that is my own people, just like with everyone else, you know what I mean? So he goes through this traumatic experience, and this guy robs him, and he's like, I don't even have anything for you to rob right now. Like, I'm literally at my lowest, dude.
Yeah.
And the funnier part about that, and we always say this, like, if you are a person who was worried about spoilers, like, should not be listening to this, like, skip ahead. I don't know what to tell you.
That we're saying spoilers at the very end of the commentary.
Yeah, sorry about that, but no, I just think that the most clever part about that first episode is how the guy that robs him, the black guy who robs him, is the guy whose identity he was mistaken from the very beginning. So all of this has happened to him by way of this one person, man, which I just think is so so fucking clever and so funny. So it's just it's a really well written show that hints at heavy topics in a really clever and funny way. So I have a deep appreciation for woke.
Well, yeah, I agree. I very much do as well. And I think those kind of mediums are so important for getting these kind of messages and thoughts out in the world, because, you know, especially nowadays, it can get really fucking intense online, you know, and with people, you know, with all the seriousness that we have. And I think comedy is such a beautiful medium. And so is storytelling, so is cinema and stuff, but especially like being able to kind of make light of it in a way, it's so much easier to digest, you know, in some way too, to be able to kind of, and gets you to think about it outside of the way we're told we have to think about it. And obviously there's points to have both severity, seriousness, and, you know, we just not to make, it's not only to make light of it, but I think having those other options, you know, out there and communicating in different ways is so important, about real issues, you know?
Yeah, it's all handled very responsibly and
Yeah.
done really well. So like big props to that show, man. It's a good one to check out if you're looking for something something funny, but also kind of spot on to binge and take in. I think it's a great choice.
Yeah, very topical, and very, very fun, very engaging. I do have one quick question before we move on about this. Like, do we? The one thing that did kind of that did hit me for a second, what I thought about was, you know, how do we define wokeness? Because like in this version of the show, they define wokeness as racial awareness or racial profiling or racial injustice, you know. And I never thought of it only as something involved with racial injustice. I thought wokeness was, I guess, if I was to define it right now, I would say it's something about being aware of history and questioning societal concepts. And so I found it interesting. I mean, again, it's just a show. It's not, you know, but it is in a way redefining for some people who may have not thought about that word before, what it actually means or entails. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
You know, within my own community, we have this thing where we talk about wokeness in levels of like color, like the black, green, and red stage, or the black, red, and green stage. I forget which order it actually goes in, but it's like first realizing your blackness, and then there's an anger and an aggression that comes with that red stage from what you're realizing and everything that you're waking up to, which is what the term woke comes from, right? It's everything that you're becoming woke to. And I guess the green part of that is the elevation beyond that, and your own mental freedom and clarity from those things that were set upon you. Having gone to school in Ohio and being friends with majority white kids in the area, there were times where kids would make comments and I'd be like, oh, you see me as different. Like, I see what this is. You know what I mean? And those pivotal moments that happen to you that make you realize like, oh, I see how you see me. Not I am what you see me as, but I see how you see me. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And so this show, that's a really interesting topic to dive into. So like, big ups to them for tackling such a weird, awkward topic.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that. I appreciate it. I think that's really profound in a lot of ways. Because it is about self-awareness is part of it too, right? That self-awareness of how you appear to the world and what the world sees you as. And I did just quickly Google, you know, woke, where it came from, and it does say on its Wikipedia page, it's referring to the perceived awareness of issues concerning social justice and racial justice. It derives from the African-American vernacular English expression, stay woke. So it does originally come from a sense of the racial justice movement, which I didn't really know before. I heard the word throughout, you know, my experience, and never associated it only with the racial kind of, I mean, it says social justice as well. So it is that kind of like, you know, even the indigenous populations of how America fucked over them. So it's kind of that awareness of just social justice and but also specifically racial justice.
For sure. And the term over the past few years specifically has been incredibly like both radicalized and politicized. So like, and also it's just been overused. So the thought of being woke has been very like lame in that
Yeah,
sense.
like
You know what I mean? It's
big
like,
eye
oh,
roll.
are you woke? Wokeness is not something that you speak about. It's something that you live, and it's about
Yeah.
information, which sort of reminds me again, not to dive back into this, not to dive back into the topic of Donald Trump. I'll say that the nice way, but like it reminded me of how last night they talked about him denouncing white supremacy and like how much of a struggle it is to get him to say the words "I denounce white supremacy." But the even bigger struggle for me is that people think that those words actually matter. Like I don't know why people keep trying to get him to say that, because denouncing white supremacy is something that you do. It's something that you actively do and live, and it's not something that you just
Say.
say. So I don't know why people are so not to segue to our next segment here, but I don't know why people are so on one about him saying those words when it means absolutely dog shit, and we all
Yeah.
know that. It's very frustrating.
Well, I mean, it goes back to like Obama, them saying when them Republicans were so mad at Obama for not being able to say radical Islamic terror. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah,
like it's just that it's that grandstanding of political world of if you have to like make, and again, this is what I was saying earlier about it being the president is a moral voice for the country. You know, what he says matters in the way that people take that as a signal one way or the other of how to act, how to be. So in a way it does, but with Donald Trump, it's fraught because he throws it, he says it, but it's almost like you can see that it means nothing to him because he's
it means
also,
absolutely nothing, and people are pulling it out of him because they almost want him to have an ounce of decency that's not there.
yes, and I mean his word doesn't matter. He lies every other sentence, so it's kind of like, why are you trying to make this guy? I mean, hey, whatever. It's
Yeah, no, I know where you're going. Why are you searching for morality that's not there?
Exactly.
Point
It's
blank,
like
period.
any
We gotta
objective
stop
person
doing
can. Yeah. Okay.
we can get on one about that all day. So I think we should move
Yeah.
away from him because we could talk about that all day. But tell me right now, Nick, my favorite time. This is because again, this is vital to our friendship. I want you guys to know that we do this whether there's a camera. We do this whether there's a camera rolling or not. Okay. So I need to know from you, my friend, my best friend Nick, what are you on one about this week?
Okay. So I got sucked into the Supreme Court hearings the past 3 days. I don't even know where to start with this. Both sides seem to be kind of claiming this idea that we need to define her for our values, that the Supreme Court is supposed to be fighting for my political values. And first, like, that's not the point of the Supreme Court, right? And on either side, like, you know, like point of it is that it's following the law and they're supposed to interpret the law. But the problem with that is that every human being has an opinion, and that opinion is inevitably going to influence their decision-making process, no matter how like unbiased they say they are. Your life experience affects how you vote, how you act, how you think, how you judge.
Yeah.
And the Republican side is defending Amy Coney Barrett and defending her amazingness. You know, they're obsessed with her. They love her. That because she's an originalist. And so they say they interpret the Constitution as clearly as it was defined when it was originally ratified. Yeah. But the Constitution is a very vague document. Like to interpret it from an originalist perspective, you have to define the word, for example, liberty, right? Like, and that can go along many different ways. And so when someone says they're originalist, it means they go back and interpret these words to their knowledge, to their experience, to their life.
Yeah. Which is still interpretation. Exactly.
And if you're a conservative person, you're going to interpret it the way that you want to see it. And both sides have done, like, there are before there were conservative originalists, there were liberal originalists. And like, that's where we get a lot of the civil rights movement from, is this original interpretation of free, you know, liberty, justice for all.
Exactly.
All this stuff that was interpreted for a long time through the liberal perspective, but now the conservatives are going back and saying, we're going to interpret it from our perspective. But it's fraught either way. It means fucking nothing. So what I'm on one about it is like, the point is we're all growing it, like, everything is changing all the time, and we have to continue to convert. What we're doing here right now is talking and figuring out the best version together moving forward, because we have to live together, we have to move together. But when you're sitting there and saying, no, I know that they meant this in its entirety the way it always was, or I know this, like, it doesn't make any fucking sense.
Well, it just makes me want to go, did they tell you that?
That's what I mean.
Did you hear that from them? Did they rise from the grave and tell you exactly what they meant by liberty for all? You know what I mean?
Exactly. And like at the same, and then what I have more problem with the conservative originalist is that it's not based in human values. It's based in like property values. It's based in like,
yeah, it's based in what you have, not like what you believe and who you are.
Yeah.
It's based on owning land and like animals and shit.
And fair enough though, that was how a lot of it was written back then. You know, they did, the libertarian view is that the government is only really supposed to be there to protect your property and your own, you know, if someone tries to kill you, you know, that's pretty much like all it really says in its entirety for a lot of it. So it's like, I get it that that's an original point of view and the law shouldn't go beyond a certain way. You know, when we push into, you know, values that I believe, which are human values, you know, and civil rights and all, and social values, you know, LGBTQ, all this stuff that I think is just a very rational way of looking at human values that can be seen through just through the Constitution, through a lot of the things we believe in. It also can be not seen that way. And so that's why I find the whole thing just stupid. And you know what I really appreciate about Barack Obama, what he did when he nominated Merrick Garland, is that he wasn't a super liberal judge, but he was just had a clean record. He had a decent life experience. He wasn't super biased either way. He wasn't he wasn't outwardly angry about any certain issue. He was just a good judge, you know? And that's what I think we should be putting forward. I want to stop this politicization of the Supreme Court, stop saying it's my side versus your side. Can we agree to be putting forward the best like non-biased judges possible? But let's commit to the highest court in the land, has a lifetime whatever tenure. Like that should be the most unbiased, the most nonpartisan person around. And that's what I'm on about.
So I was gonna say, so affording you the opportunity on your soapbox to say one thing to these people or this entity that you're on one about, what does Nick say?
You're morons. You're all stupid and petty. No, I mean, like if I'm talking to the Senate, if I'm talking to the president.
Wait, give me 1 second. We have to pause for 1 second. I literally have to run downstairs and pick up drugs. I know this is so inappropriate, but I'll be right back. Give me 2 minutes.
Approximately 10 hours later.
Back. Got the goods. Okay, so do you want to repeat that question since I kind of put you on the spot with it?
Well, I was asking, am I speaking to who? The president, the Senate, the world? The Senate?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm trying to imagine myself saying it in an unironic way or a non-cynical way, because I have very little faith right now in the ability for our Senate to work in a bipartisan manner. But if I was to say it genuinely, I would say we all have to live in this country, and we have to hold our institutions sacred, and that means that we can't think that winning is more important than the best angels of our country.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting from it. That sacredness isn't derivative or specific to one person. You know, those institutions that need to be kept sacred are universal and should always be evolving for a reason.
Well, and if you know, all these fucking conservative people say they believe in God, you know, if you believe everyone is made in the image of God, you have to respect everyone. You can't just think it's all about you and your clan. It has to be about thinking about everyone.
It's true.
So
very true.
That's it. That's what I'm on one about. No big deal.
No
Um,
big deal, right?
but Richard, what are you on one about?
Ooh, okay. So listen, man, like you, I had a specific topic in mind. And then for most of the week, I was inundated with stories and images, specifically surrounding Black women. So this week, I am on one about the protection of women, specifically Black women in America. Um, so Megan Thee Stallion, who's one of my new favorites, just like
Totally.
a gem, just like
Mhm.
just such a precious gem.
Did you watch did you watch Legendary though?
Of course, I watched Legendary.
Oh
I,
my
I
God.
mostly watched Legendary to see what Megan Thee Stallion was going to be wearing.
Totally. Totally.
But no, like, she's a new girl on the rap scene lyrically. She's amazing. Her style game is on point. Her vision is just on 10. And she's just like, she's amazing, right? And recently she wrote an op-ed for the New York Times. I think it was a couple days ago that it came out, and she spoke out about protecting Black women in America. She of course spoke about her own personal history and experience with violence. Most recently, her situation where she was shot twice by the rapper Tory Lanez, and yeah, just even
Wild.
saying that is wild.
Yeah.
Even that's a thing is wild to me, right? But she really took the opportunity to speak up about how much, as a woman, specifically a Black woman, she was questioned, sort of taken through the ringer and mocked and made fun of, and falsely debunked, and basically toyed around with, and even literally used for marketing purposes. Tory Lanez has since released an album in regards to this situation, right? And then shortly after he was called out for using this horrible situation as a marketing ploy, he talked about how he was donating so many of the funds to such and such organization, blah blah blah. But it just as a young Black man who comes from a Black woman, it's I've always known my entire life that the most unprotected group of people out here in this universe are Black women. And it's just so bizarre to me because culturally we look to Black women for so many cues, from what to say, how to say it, how to dress, like what's new, what's trendy. We're always looking at Black women. Black women are always the solution at the end of the day, or set up to solve some problem or make things better. And it's just so bizarre to me that they feel so unprotected and that I see them being so unprotected. It was disappointing to see how many people in my own community waited for whatever they felt like was a fact, despite what she had said before, despite what had occurred before. There were so many people who were, to me, it seemed like waiting on pins and needles for her to be wrong and to be lying about this situation, and just looking for an avenue to diminish her story. And after having experienced such trauma, I can only imagine how small that makes you feel. You know what I mean? How alone that actually makes you feel. And that's why I really respect her for using her platform as she has, even going on Saturday Night Live and performing and putting in the background, protect Black women. It was beautiful to see, and it was really visually strong to see. And I think we live in a time where phrases like Black Lives Matter are controversial, and statements like protect Black women are controversial, and it shouldn't be. It's a very simple concept. When we say protect Black women, we're not saying don't protect anyone else. When we say protect Black women, we're not saying that no one else deserves attention or focus, or that no one else is disadvantaged or disenfranchised or not protected. But we are saying that right now it's important to protect Black women. And what I will say as well is that in that New York Times article, she didn't just speak about herself and her own trauma. She talked about Black transgender women and how, I think the stat is like somewhere around, like, in 2019, 91% of transgender, gender nonconforming people that were killed were Black women. And that 91%, right? So no matter how you feel about that, no matter what your thoughts are in regards to the LGBT community. Like, yo, like that stat alone is just heartbreaking. And I realize I'm not a person who excludes where those numbers come from. I know that Black men have a hand in the violence against transgender women. I know that's a very real thing, but it's not for Black men alone to own. And I just think that Black women are so quickly discredited. I can think of so many cases where, like for instance, Gabrielle Union with her lawsuit with NBC and America's Got Talent. No one believed her, and everyone mocked her about her experience there. And like now they're reaching some settlement. And also, fuck Terry Crews, if I'm going to throw that in there. Like they're reaching a settlement where like I don't know what the inside details of that are, but reaching a settlement in any capacity means that her experience was real. That's what it means to me, right? I think about Serena Williams, who is undoubtedly one of the greatest athletes of all time in any sport. I don't, like, I don't care what you're talking about. She is like it for me. And I think about not only the racial injustice she's had to endure in the sport of tennis, but just like how much body shaming and body commentary she's had to deal with as a Black woman about what she wears at a French Open, being in a catsuit. Like, it shouldn't matter what she wears. It matters that she's the best for a reason. And all of that stacked on top of each other, man. I'm always going to be on one about protecting Black women, period. Yeah.
Preach.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I don't even have too many commentaries on that, because I think I'm in full agreement with you. And I think it was very well said. I think, I guess I would ask you, if you were to suggest to someone, to the whoever, whoever's listening, like how we do that moving forward, that's different from what we're doing now. I mean, I will say, Joe Biden, to his credit, on the stage yesterday brought up trans women of color, and talked about how horrible it was that they were being killed. So it's like, we're making progress. I do believe there is the fact that we have an old white man presidential candidate talking about trans women of color. It's like, that's progress,
Well, that too is an answer to the question. It's like, we keep having these conversations. We keep talking about the real numbers. We keep talking about the real issues. We don't look to discredit. We should look to understand. And I think that's the most important part on a universal level, right? When it comes to so many topics, but specifically about believing women and believing Black women specifically. There are those people who argue, well, you can't just believe anything a woman says. You can't just believe anything a Black woman says. And like, maybe you shouldn't, but at the same time, your mission should not be to seek and discredit. It should be to listen and understand. And I think that patience and taking that time, that quality of care, is the most important thing that we can do moving forward. And like you said, doing things like Joe Biden did and bringing these subjects up. Say their names, talk about the numbers, talk about the lives that we have lost, because they matter. If they matter, bring them up and let's keep this conversation going, and just don't let it die. Keep it in the ether and keep it in the atmosphere. I think that's the most important thing.
It's funny. I also, I have that kind of criticism baked into my brain somewhere of like, well, we can't believe all women, or, we can't believe all accusations of racism, because, people are people, and, sometimes it's not, you can't have a blanket statement like that. And,
yeah.
But what I do have to say about that, and, this just came up as you were talking, is like, there's a reason why, even if it's false, or even if it's confused, or even if it's not 100% true, why it's being said in the first place. And what you said about understanding, I think, is the most important part. It's like, the dismissal of it is the wrong choice, because it doesn't continue the conversation. It doesn't seek to understand why it's even in the ethos of people's minds, why it's even there in the first place.
Absolutely.
It wouldn't be there if it didn't come from a reason. It wouldn't be used improperly if it didn't come from a real reason, a proper reason in the first place for being used. So,
go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, so that use of listening to understand, I think, is such an important factor in that.
It's so vital, man. And you and I are again are always people who, no matter how we feel about a topic, if we agree or disagree, we're always gonna take a look at the other side and listen, just because like that's what needs to happen, right? But you need to do it with the right intentions. And I will say this because I think it deserves to be said. In Megan's case specifically, I think a lot of people forget that at the end of the day, Megan Thee Stallion is she's 25 years old. She's a 25-year-old Black woman from Houston, Texas. You know what I mean? And her initial instincts with that whole incident with Tory Lanez was to protect him because of the climate of police and the relationship that Black people have with police right now. Even after being violated by him, her instinct was to protect him. And that struggle alone is sickening. It's heartbreaking, right? But I think the biggest heartbreak of all of this, and I think something that deserves to be admitted, right? If this had happened to any white female pop star out there, the reaction and the climate to this shit would be way different. I'm not, like, I hate to use specific people because it doesn't actually apply to them, and I don't want to drag people who are not associated with this into this, but if that fucking happened to Taylor Swift, the world would be upside down right now.
I was thinking
yeah.
I was thinking the exact same, when you said Taylor Swift, I was literally about to say her name too. So
if it happened to America's guitar-toting songwriting sweetheart, and I'm not taking anything away from her, love T Swift, like not trying to have any beef with a Swiftie or any of the such. Like, I actually really appreciate Taylor Swift for whatever it's worth, but like, had this happened to her, this conversation would be different. The headlines would be different. The news outlets would be saying different shit. Like, the response in the streets would be different. And it's just not, and it's because she's a Black woman, and that deserves to be said.
1,000%. 1,000%. Thank you for sharing that. I really important things to be to be kept in conversation.
Absolutely. If anyone wants to check out that article, it's just like, you can just research New York Times, Megan Thee Stallion. It's a really good read. There's also a short video on the New York Times online platform that goes along with it, so you can take a look at that beforehand. It's really cool. So yeah, check that out.
Well, and she's 25. Wow,
she's a baby.
That's crazy.
Yeah, man.
It gives me hope that this. I feel old using this word, but the younger generations are doing things, are representing in that way, and I really, it gives me hope in a lot of ways.
All right, so if you guys have made it this far, then both Nick and I want to thank you personally for checking out the first installment of Routine Progress.
Yes, thank you so much.
So much, man. This has actually been a passion project between the two of us for quite some time now, and we're just bringing it to fruition, and we're really excited about that. Also, if you guys need any information, links, if you need sources, or if you want to fact check us or anything like that, you can find all of those informational resource material things in the description box below.
Yeah, exactly. And if you do enjoy this content or enjoy us or anything, you want to support us, please like, comment, subscribe, do all those things that help kind of get newer content like us push forward into the ethos, so we can make some traction, make some good vibes all around. And also, if you have any ideas for topics you want us to discuss, any information you want us to have privately, please feel free to email us at routineprogress@gmail.com.
That's it. Hit us up, man.
Seriously. And if you, and just so you guys all know, this is only the tip of the iceberg for what we're planning to do here. So stay tuned for future updates on how to get us on your favorite podcast apps and just cool new content coming your way. Okay. Yeah. So thanks again. Bye.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Because I need to tell you something.
What?
Muy important.
What?
Muy importante.
Importante.
Here's what came today after waiting for so long, and like, I built up so many conspiracies in my head as to why it was not here and not happening.
What?
I get to be a real boy.
Oh my God.
Office.
Are you sending it right now?
Yo, so I just finished it. I spent like the better of 2 hours kind of researching the candidates in New York that I don't know. But yeah, I actually just finished doing that, and doing all my research, man, and now the deal is sealed, and I just got to send it off.
Do you feel like super patriotic?
I feel the most patriotic.
When I
feel
sent in my ballot in California, I was like, I spent the entire afternoon researching, and I was like, by the time I sent it, I was like, wow! I really like to the point of I was almost chanting like USA, USA, USA. I actually had a whole like idea last night. I was like, we should take it back.
I just need you to know that that's the most frightening thing I've ever heard you chant before.